everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be playing the deck that is way better than what I thought it was going to be, and it's not necessarily because it is only playing arguably the best 1-2 punch in the game in Badger Mole Cub and Ouroboros, because obviously we know that this plan is very solid, but it just always looks kind of weird when you have this many 2-drops in the list. As you can look right here, our curve is massively on 2 mana. There's 18 2-drops and 10 1-drops with 4 3-drops and 4 4-drops, playing 24 lands, which is kind of a weird curve to have. Something like this would typically be playing like 22 to somewheres of 20, and some mono red decks playing like 18, but then they wouldn't have a 4-drop, of course. But it works out very well. I am pleasantly surprised on how well this deck did and how flexible some of these card choices are. This list I'm currently playing was the one that I think Covert Go Blue played earlier yesterday, I think. I don't really know. I had some house issues I talk about a little bit more in the outro, so I didn't have a lot of time to like kind of browse, look around. But I've seen this deck list a couple of times and I've been pretty delighted every time I've seen it. I've just had a little bit of nerves thinking that this deck was kind of a I'm only going to show the good matches, but every game we play is in a row, other than the fact that I cut an Is It deck because, let's be honest, we all don't want to watch lessons just play the game for 30 minutes. At least I don't. But with that said, we're going to hop into the games and see how they go. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I mean, this isn't bad, I guess. We just take... There's so many 2-drops. I know it's supposed to probably be Earthbender Ascension, but I think if we get it online, we're much happier, right? And we're against mono red. Burn? Okay. We have a Deep Cavern Bat. No? Alright, that's pretty good. Here's the thing. Are we supposed to remove this, or are we supposed to Deep Cavern Bat them? Especially considering they started off with a Bolt Wave, right? I guess we Deep Cavern Bat. It's kind of like a 50-50 shot there, I think. Creature removal was tough, but targeted spell with an Emberheart Challenger makes it worse. So I think we just pass there and we hold this. Don't know what they may draw. When this enters Earthbend 2, so I have a big slam. When land enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. When you do, 4 more. Sure. I almost want to double block this, because this obviously sucks, but whenever they target something, I can then pop it. Taking this free chip damage just seems so bad. But also, whenever you attack, put a 1 counter on target attack creature gains menace. But I can also just put counters on this. Yeah, I think that's a bit better, maybe. Oh, sure. That's okay. Land counter. I know that's not really like what we want to be doing with that. It's just going to be what it is, unfortunately. Also, drawing cards right now is pretty bad. Put a 1/1 counter on it. That's to gain life. Again, slick shots are not the greatest creatures in the world if they're not being used with spells. It's hard cast instead of plotting, which makes sense. And a land, they reveal that they have a bad card. Kind of shocked by that. Sure. Take the draw. Sure. Fine. I now go with Earthbending Ascension. Or Earthbender's Ascension. We Earthbend this up. Game kind of running a little weird, but sure, it's fine. Gonna land. Chocobo gets a little bit bigger. Earthbender now gets the land hit. We play a land. Getting a little bit larger there. Maybe I should hold this for a turn. Although, if I start closing the... I think I hold 1 more turn on this. It is holding back by... It is making them hold back everything here, so... We have one creature gaining us a ton of life. So that's great. Sure. At some point, you think these slick shots would be getting held back, but sure. Obviously, I'll take that damage there. Sure. Oh. Alright. Cool. Up. Combat. Play this kind of defensive strategy here. Because it's both offensive and defensive. It's a bit weird. But getting his food and stuff like that makes this obviously a lot harder for them to kind of rebound from. We get to 4. We can either crack this food for 3 life or use this Bitter Triumph, discarding the Chocobo, which is one of the reasons we didn't play it here. So we actually save ourselves 3 life on that removal as well. A game that I thought was going to be pretty tough based on how it went. Deep Cavern Bat ended up being the correct play, as we take their kind of pump spell that could have targeted their challenger and then maybe help them dig a bit deeper in their deck instead of whatever cards they have. So we get it, thankfully, and we'll move on. Or a Landwar Elf deck with a Landwar Elf, a bull card, so we will keep here. We get to play it on 1 and then go into this or this maybe. We'll see. Our mana's a bit weird. Also, that's also implying that Landwar Elves does indeed making it out of this turn, which is not a given these days. Oh, it's making it out of that turn. Earthbender essentially would be nice. Just getting to play this. Whenever you put a counter on a creature you control, draw a card. It's ability on your turn. Sure, dude. Why not? So if I play Fable Passage now, I can go get the right color because I have to do it that way, actually. So we want a swamp here. Do this. Here. And then we can kind of go like place taps or place untapped and maybe go for Earthbender's Ascension. But our opponent's Reanimator. They're looking to put some big stuff into the yard, which obviously will cause some problems. Okay. I want to attack here. I think I want to get the value off Earthbender's Ascension more than anything. Fortunately. Here. There. Counter's going up. Another land ripped. Maybe not the greatest. Nothing to play here, so we just put that there. And then we're kind of in please don't hurt me territory. Sucks, obviously. On 2. Or Boroid's obviously going to cause some problems. They're looking to put the green creature in. Okay, that's not the one, but they're... Dude, another land is tough. Here. Not going to be on 4, so we don't really care that much. Go for Ouroboros here. Figure, counter, draw. Earthbender's Ascension, sure. Here's 5. This will trigger next turn. We do have lethal on the board. They don't have anything that crazy yet. They need the creature in the graveyard that puts all of them from their hand onto the battlefield, and I don't think that they can find it here. And something... I know the sweepers are 3 damage. I can't think of them right now. But, like, Brotherhood's End is a card that I think of whenever I see this spot. But I know that card's rotated out. I think it's like Molten something. Or Slag something. I don't remember. That card is something that they could play here. They could technically play Day of the Black Sun if they have it. If they play like a land here. And they can wipe all my creatures from that perspective. Other play here is to play Swamp, bring up the Cottage. And then attack with that after Ouroboros triggers. But we get to play a land and the Ascension will happen. Putting another counter on Ouroboros. But I think... Our opponent's here. They're in the tank, I think. It's a tough turn. You might be thinking of how to survive here. But normally in these spots, if my opponent's like in the tank or like left, I cut it. But I really do think... You're just thinking if they can survive one turn. Unfortunately for them, they just will not be. Urpin gives haste, I believe. This is 3 mana, so we're just going to play this. Opening up a land, putting in another land, triggering all these, putting a counter on Ouroboros, and just going as wide as possible. Sure. Tap land, surveil. Even though I do think, like, on board, they're pretty much a goner anyway. So we go here. Best part about this, I get to show a cool trick if they let me. With Cottage coming up, Cottage actually is just an attack trigger. So with that, it'll actually allow me to exile a card from their graveyard, which is cool. See if our opponent sticks around. Move to combat, put a counter on everything. As you'll see, Cottage gets the trigger there, which is cool. Gonna pick one at random. It doesn't really matter as we're way over limit here. But thankfully, our opponent let us show that off. It's kind of cool. The Cottage gets to do something sick. If I'm not mistaken, Marlon is also a YouTuber. So I've seen a couple of their videos. If it's the person I'm thinking of, and he is definitely on the jank pile today. I've not really seen this list. I've played against this a couple of times. I don't know where it came from or what it was doing because we've always just played that Sultai deck. With this card's just so good. I just don't know what it is. If anybody has like a list or a video maybe of where this is coming from, because I've seen it quite a bit, so somebody had to have played it, right? Or it maybe did well in a challenge or something, and I'm just not aware. But with that said, we move on. We will keep this, that's for sure. And as promised, I definitely skip the Is It Lesson deck because I just can't play it. I just move on, man. But here we are playing Golgari deck. Golgari's been kind of lackluster for a while, but thankfully we're kind of here and set up. This is a bit weird, but I think I'm actually going to play it this way instead of playing Badger Mole Cub right now, even though we have Ouroboros, but it does allow us to draw a lot of cards. We see like a Taya Judgment, things like that, so seems like things are going to happen. This most likely not resolving. Well, maybe. They don't play a lot of counter spells. Most likely a Helix or something here, if I had to guess. I just want to draw a card. Yeah, there's going to be a way to get out of this. Comes up. At the 1/1, we just attack for 1. We hit another land. Kind of that thing, like getting it out of the way is great. Now there could be counter spells here. Most likely there's a counter spell here. I can't pay around it regardless, so let's start off with Deep Cavern Bat. These will come in untapped on following turns. This is where like a Chocobo is really good, but unfortunately we're just not going to be able to find it. Okay. What? So a Negate, Ultima, Day of Judgment. They have 3 lands. We just hope they miss. About all we got. I really thought this was the 3rd land. I'm an idiot. I think I want to look more than anything here. Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons. We're going to have polar opposite games here, where my opponent has no lands, but we have all the lands. Maybe. Team Rip. Going to take the Consult back, and then they're probably going to cast it trying to hit a land here. Well, a Negate is not good against us. Unfortunately, I want to put this in. I think we just have to. We miss out on a big attack, though. I think, and I say big attack lightly. I think we have to go for it, right? Then what's my turn next turn? Do nothing? Yeah, I think we're going to sacrifice 2 damage just to play this and force some things to happen. Although, yeah, doing the Fables, getting lands out of our deck when we're struggling this hard would be great. 3 looks, most likely we'll find a land. We just kind of hope it's a tap land. Anything. And 2 damage here isn't really going to make the difference. I do think hitting all these land drops has made the difference so far. I had to be quite honest. We will see. I want to play my Land War Elves as well, so I'm just going to this, get a forest, up, back for 4. kind of on our saving grace right now. They do play Shiko, so it matters what we grab. So it take to get lost, I guess. Now, and then we'll look to isolate the star charts next turn. Appland, sure. Getting more lands here, which is not great. Okay, bro. I mean, if we're gonna lose a game, this is gonna be it, right? Like, what is going on here? Take out the consult, like we said. And then it'll be Lightning Helix. As it's the only other card they can hit here. But they will have this to block on a later turn. Obviously, if they cast an ultimate here, then great. They hit a land. Obviously, the... Dude. This is incredible. Never give up, never surrender. I guess I'll deck then. Yeah. I'm gonna attack with the Land War Elves because they just get to block it for free. Actually, no, they don't. Forgot, I guess I have Bitter Triumph to take everything they own. Also, if they do that, we get to go kind of up value here. We're past blockers now. I can't believe I've hit this many lands. Go ahead, I guess. Another consult would be pretty bad there. They have the card now. Yes. They have the 7 mana card. They have all the stuff for it. They have Ultima ready, so playing Ouroboros doesn't make much sense. Up. I mean, I will, like, maybe. I don't know. Another card. Salt here. Sure. Pretty good. Obviously, there's a negate to be had. Now, the thing about Ouroboros is we play it regardless, forcing them to cast Ultima here if we get to make contact. But who knows? Or we get rid of that so they can't gain life here. In a little bit of a tough spot. Now, it seems weird, but it just is what it is. Or get lost could be used, or our thing could be used for that, but obviously, whatever. Now we are talking, dude. We finally got a land that did something. At least. Obviously, this land's been putting in all the work in the world, right? But it's just the thought of the opposite, right? Probably shouldn't even have worried about this, but I want the chip damage, even though they will get rid of my land permanently because of Ultima. This will go away, and their turn will just end. Hopefully they see that. They should block... Well, they have to block 4 regardless, I guess. And they'll get chipped for 2, and then we'll be able to attack them for 2 more here if Ultima's their only play. Not another Helix, bro. That is incredible. That's incredible, dude. Well, what's this last card? Is it a land? That Helix, that's the 3rd one. I mean, they have dug quite a bit, so it could be possible. I think they have to decide between Ultima here. I think that's what they're deciding on. Then just hold up your negate and see if it matters. We'll be able to earthbend a land. If they pass, we can do something really weird where we earthbend. It's only a sword. So brutal. We can technically earthbend Weird. Could we have done that? We're in deciding mode here. Consult star charts maybe? Again? Although... Okay. Well, they've already used 3 helixes. Is there another helix in the 7? Well, it's like less than 7. It's a bit weird. Eco unavailable. Or Boroid's available here. The weird play is to bossing, say, the land itself. Earthbending give haste. Target should be with haste. Okay. It does. You could Earthbend technically the same land, is what I was trying to say. Here. Maybe should have tapped a land, leaving up a basic. That's what we're gonna lose here, but all the lands, all the awkward cards. I've never been a big fan in the gate, to be honest with you. Counters, nice. Flanker could be played here. That's the card. Consult. Looking for that last helix. They probably find it. They looked at, like, unless they asked on it earlier. Oh, it's a get. Okay. Well, Ultima's 100% getting casted here, and then we should win. They play a land, and that's going to be it. GG's, brother. What a tough game. What a tough game. There is zero reason we ever should win that, to be honest. I mean, just a Shiko that blocks, a Biza even, I mean, it's weird to say, because, I mean, they cast a lot of helixes. Even the 7 mana card would have been good enough, I think. Unless, for whatever reason, they're just not playing it on maybe that first consult, put them to the bottom, and that was just them digging to it. And then in that last pile, they couldn't grab it because they needed a 2 mana piece of interaction. But, hey, we get there, and that's good enough for us. All right, we get to go first here. Pretty interesting hand. Obviously, works out a lot better for our land where elves tends to survive here. Be great. If we rip another land, though, that would be even best. Unfortunately, we miss. Could go for Badger Mole Cub here, but I think I want to do it the opposite way. Or do I just, because of how good this is, I just go Badger Mole Cub anyway, right? A little part of me is, I just don't know how much value I'm supposed to try to drive out of this. Yeah. There's artifacts. So they can lock things down. We'll get this back. But, hey, I mean, we're gonna have to figure this one out. And this is why you play this way. You get to do the aggressive play. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and set this in. It's a little bit of a smaller attack, but whenever a counter's put on a creature you control, we draw a card. And in a spot like this, we're going to need it. This is also an enchantment, which means the one card doesn't take it from us. Which is nice. Equals Cage. Takes, and takes, but we get that back. It also takes there. Leaves this pretty well open. And then, I mean, double Badger Mole Cub's pretty sick. I mean, that's 3 of them. Do I want to do Cub or do I want to do Ascension? I mean, I guess I already played my sack land, so I should do it this way. Okay. Animal Cub again. Up. And now we want to do the opposite here, I think. Or, no, I think we want to draw more. As weird as that sounds. Because I think we want 2 cards. Wait, did I mess up? No, I already drew off one of them. That's right. Hit for a lot. And then now we have lethal on the board if they just remove this. United, let's see what's up. They could clear everything. They got close, but no cigar, unfortunately for them. should be enough here. You can tap one creature. I hate to have to do it this way. No, I get the Earthbend regardless, right? But these are just so large, I don't want to use them. Here. Tap 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. We can set them to 1. They'll tap my land. We lose everything to a Pinnacle, right? I guess that's true regardless of what we do. Wait. Non-land permanent. So this is a land. I think we actually win if we do it this way. So this will be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wow, we found the lethal here. I almost missed it. Not even thinking about that. I was like, wait, there's a restriction on this. It doesn't say all types. It just says it can tap a specific thing. They're gonna attempt to try to tap the 5, but they have to tap a Badger Mole Cub, and it comes across as exactly 12. Wowee, oh wows occur, bro. That is a game of games. Thankfully, I found that, because that's one of the ones when I go back and watch that I get upset about, and I'm like, man, if I just would have thought about it. Sometimes, you know, rushing a play or whatever. Like there, if you remember, just before that, if you were kind of paying attention, or maybe you're tuning in kind of now and just had me on the side, you know, I get it. It tried to tap one of our lands up here because they made 3 mana, which makes sense because of this, right? But this only earthbends 2, so it would technically make our creature smaller that we bring up. But it would go, you wouldn't think wide, but we actually lose a power there. And then they would tap that. So instead, we kind of did it the opposite way and then earthbended it on the same land, which you can do. So pretty cool. Pretty cool way to find a win there. All right. An interesting start here. We do want to rip a land off the top. It's by far the best draw. So we can do this on turn 3 with like a Deep Cavern Bat being able to kind of get inserted here. Maybe the Mirror? Well, this is Reanimator, which is fine. We can maybe stagger them. Okay, I'll take that play, though. Like, if I'm going to miss a land, I'm okay with it being that way, right? Where I just get to increase these creatures' volatility. And we want, what, green, I think? I think it's kind of always correct in a lower count situation here. We want green. We hit for 2. We'll have potentially more power. Best case scenario is we rip maybe another passage and then we get to lead into with the Deep Cavern Bat, or we start to scoos when they put something good in. It's like a little, oh, yes sirree. Do I even bother Deep Cavern Batting them? Maybe I do not. Maybe don't worry about this, as it is a kind of card. Yeah, I think it's just Deep Cavern Bat here. And then force them to block at some point. And if we get them within striking range. A Reacher's bad. This Overlord's bad. These aren't as bad as they seem. This isn't as good as it seems. Because the card that they would have to exile is the Bringer. So it's definitely the Overlord, I think, here. And now we'll go fetch our Swamp. And then, or actually with Scoos, it might be Forest again. Probably just Forest again. Because of Scavenging Ooze. So now we attack for 8. Yeah, and we see the block. So using our Bitter Triumph would have been useless there. Play another land. They play a Spider. Sure. Bringer is a card we have to worry about, but we can just exile it immediately with the Scoos. There's an Arden. Arden's very good. They have exactly a land. They tapped... Not that they tapped bad. It just tapped bad for them. No. They had no other way to tap. That's what I'm trying to say. This has reach, so obviously no attack here. Is it just play Scoos? And I think the answer is yes. I don't know what they do differently that Scoos doesn't beat here. We just attack like this. And then they're kind of forced to block. Because it's so much damage coming across the board here. Then it's obviously, if all else fails, it's Exile Bringer. Because we can beat an Arden, kind of. Because Arden only has 2 options to bring back. And then we can always Bitter Triumph one of them. But Bringer, we auto lose. Right? So, this is his best case scenario. We do that, and then we get to untap with the Scoos, and then start exiling everything. Because then they just can't beat that. They leave on top. So what I'm kind of referring to is we exile the Bringer, we exile the Arden, then next turn, or on next turn, and then we are able to exile 3 things. The Scoos is just kind of unbeatable here unless they Bitter Triumph it now. And yeah, I think they realize that. Maybe best case scenario for them is go ahead and Pollen. Go ahead and like analyze Pollen and go find maybe another Overlord where I can't really exile everything, because the best thing about Superior Spider-Man, it actually gets around Scavenging Ooze pretty well. If there's a card to get around to your Graveyard Hate piece, you just have to have enough in here. So when we see people have like 3 Bringers and an Arden, it gets a lot harder because that's 4 mana. Because the Superior Spider-Man doesn't actually target anything, so it's just a bit tough to kind of get around. But 2 Chocobo starts, that's obviously going to be very tough when they're on the draw. If they were on the play, I think we end up getting blown out. But fortunately enough for us, we were not, and that's cool. All right, here we are with the list after, and I've seen multiple lists of this deck floating around, and I got to actually sit down and watch Covert Go Blue's list today. I had a bit of a house problem today. It was weird. Just randomly a noise started getting made throughout the house, so I was not entirely sure what, because it's one of those things, you know, and our weather right now, it gets to freezing, and now it's 60 degrees out. So it was literally 20 degrees 2 days ago. It got really warm today. That's when like a bust, if you have a pipe, will actually appear, because in the ice that busts open the pipe will be gone and things like that. So it literally sounded like that was happening. Got that taken care of. It was definitely way less of a scare than that. Just something got stuck in terms of like drainage situation. So it was a bit weird. But that was cool. So while I was kind of just relaxing after that, I found out that Covert Go Blue played this, but I've seen other people play this, and I've seen multiple lists on Untapped and things like that. This deck's kind of been going around. I've seen lists that are playing like 2 of these. I would settle with 1. I think it's a little too narrow to be playing 2, because obviously the thing is we want to hit big land drops and stuff. Also, by the way, I just wanted to show that one I hit all the lands on. I only played 24, by the way, so that's pretty great and grand. But the deck's solid. It is just doing what it wants to do at the peak, and it is playing the correct cards in Landware Elves, Badger Mole Cub, and Ouroboros to go along with it. And when you have such a strong kind of cast of cards, this is why Blue-Black was always so good, if you want to think of it that way. At the time that it was at its peak, is you had basically one of the 2 drops kind of filled out this slot, and then you had Enduring Curiosity and Kaito here, which technically, if you want to do it this way, Kaito oftentimes was 3 mana, Curiosity's 4, and then you would just win that way. And right now, Green-Black gets to kind of benefit from that the most, where we have a really solid core to play, and then other cards are just here to support this core, or just be other assets that have to be answered, like the Chocobo, for example. We had 2 4/5s attacking that opponent. They didn't know what to do about it. If we have a siege online, every time we play land, we're drawing a card, and then we're fetching a land, and then putting extra counters on things like Chocobo and whatnot. And then things like Ouroboros obviously get out of hand. And then Earthbender's Ascension is just one of those cards, like when you read it, you're like, I don't know about the value, man. I just don't know if it's there. And then you start playing it, and you're like, well, I mean, I am kind of a landfall deck, so that works out pretty well. And I'm kind of in the need to put counters on things, so that's pretty cool. And if I do play a Fable Passage, it's at 3 because it brings in a land itself. And then just one more land, it's putting an extra counter somewhere. And then something like the Earthbending land gets a lot more threatening with that kind of floating around, because then you Earthbend a land, you play a land, you put a counter on it. And there are a lot of cards that just can't answer lands, as we saw with Braided Net in the one game, where they couldn't tap the 5/5. They had to settle for a 4/4, and it ended up costing them the game. But also those matchups are defined on the fact that if we ever rip this, we would have won, right? So it's kind of weird because you want, in those spots when you see this card be like an automatic win button, you're like, oh, I'll play 2. But oftentimes you get to that spot by not drawing clunky cards, and I would argue that more often than not, it's going to be more clunky than either of these 2 draws, this draw or this draw, where this is kind of an automatic win state against the kind of graveyard deck, so you have to be a bit careful with that. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. This deck was a lot more fun to play than what I thought it was going to be. I was a little bit anxious. I literally, before the video, I was like, man, Arena, please, please be good to me. I don't have a ton of time, and this deck makes me nervous, and it just worked out well anyway, so that's pretty cool. Pretty happy with that result. With that said, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.